In this video, we're going to talk about Lake Erie. Now, it's one of North America's 5 Great Lakes, but trust me, this one has a story to tell. It's a lake of incredible extremes. It's the warmest and the most packed with life, but it's also the most fragile. We're going to explore how its greatest strengths are also, kind of surprisingly, its biggest weaknesses. Okay, let's get into it. So while Lake Erie might not be the biggest or the deepest of the bunch, it's a lake of superlatives. It is the southernmost, the shallowest, and the absolute warmest of all the Great Lakes. And you know what? Those 3 things are the key to understanding everything about this lake, from its amazing biodiversity to the really serious challenges it's up against. And here's where it gets really interesting. It's a total paradox. If you look at its surface area, it is huge. We're talking the 11th largest lake in the entire world. But then you look at how much water it actually holds, its volume, and it's the smallest of the Great Lakes. That just perfectly shows you how incredibly shallow it is. Just think of it like a massive but really thin sheet of water that's shared between Canada and the United States. Now, to really get a handle on Lake Erie, you can't just think of it as one big bathtub of water. It's actually more like a lake with 3 totally distinct personalities. Geologists call them basins, and believe me, each one is completely different from the next. And the difference between them is, well, it's staggering. Just look at the Western Basin. It's so shallow, with an average depth of just over 7 meters. But as you travel east across the lake, whoa, the bottom just drops out. The Eastern Basin goes all the way down to 64 meters at its deepest point. That's like plunging down a 20-story building, all within the same lake. This massive change in depth creates entirely different worlds. That huge, shallow Western Basin, it gets so warm and sunlit that it's home to almost all of the lake's islands, and it acts as this vital nursery for fish. It's a completely different world compared to the deep, cold waters you'd find way out on the eastern end. So you're probably wondering, why does all this talk about shallowness even matter? Well, it has a huge biological impact. It's the secret ingredient for why Lake Erie is just absolutely teeming with life. A whopping 80% of its water flows in from the upper Great Lakes, mostly through the Detroit River. And because the lake is so shallow, especially in that western part, the sun's energy doesn't have a lot of water to heat up. It warms up incredibly fast, making Erie the warmest of all the Great Lakes. We're talking summer temperatures that often hit a pretty comfortable 24 degrees Celsius. And all that warmth creates an explosion of life. I mean, it is hard to overstate this, so get ready. Some estimates suggest that an incredible 50%, half, of all the fish in the entire Great Lakes system live right here in Lake Erie. That warm, nutrient-rich water makes it the most biologically productive of all the lakes. It's an absolute world-class destination for fishing. But of course, that incredible amount of life has attracted people. Over 12 million of them live in the Lake Erie watershed, and it has created a really complex and often pretty fragile relationship between us humans and the health of the lake itself. And this is where we see that paradox again. The lake's greatest strength, its warmth, its shallowness, the very things that make it so full of life, well, those also happen to be its greatest vulnerabilities. For decades, the lake has been battling something called cultural eutrophication. It's a fancy term, but it basically means that nutrient runoff, mostly from farm fertilizers and city waste, just overloads the ecosystem. This stuff acts like junk food for algae, causing these massive, harmful blooms. And when all that algae dies, it decomposes and sucks all the oxygen from the water, creating these huge dead zones where fish just can't breathe. Now, a more modern threat is plastic pollution. Researchers estimate there are about 6.5 metric tons of plastic just floating on the surface of Lake Erie. And what's really worrying is that most of this isn't big stuff like bottles or bags. No, it's tiny, tiny fragments called microplastics. So where does all that plastic go? Well, this model shows how the lake's currents act almost like a conveyor belt, pushing all that debris along the southern shoreline. You can see the highest concentrations, those darker purple and blue areas, are right next to major cities like Cleveland and Toledo. It's a really clear link between where we live and where the pollution ends up. Okay, so despite these serious challenges, Lake Erie is still a place of incredible history and just fascinating secrets. So for our last section, let's have some fun and run through 5 quick fire facts you probably did not know about this amazing lake. First up, it only takes about 2.6 years for a single drop of water to travel all the way through Lake Erie. That's the shortest retention time of any Great Lake. It means the lake flushes itself out really quickly, which is great for cleanup efforts, but it also means it's super sensitive to any new pollutants that get in. Alright, here's a real mind bender for you. Because its deepest point is only 64 meters, Lake Erie is the only Great Lake whose entire lake bed sits above sea level. All the other lakes are so deep that their bottoms are actually below the level of the ocean. How wild is that? The bottom of the lake is also basically a giant underwater museum. It's estimated that there are up to 8,000 shipwrecks preserved down there in the cold fresh water. That's more wrecks per square kilometer than almost anywhere else on Earth, which makes it a world-famous spot for scuba divers. And here is a fantastic piece of trivia. Where's the southernmost point of Canada? Well, it's not on the mainland. It's actually an island, Pelee Island, smack dab in the middle of Lake Erie's shallow western basin. So that brings us right back to our main question. The very things that make Lake Erie the warmest, the shallowest, and the most biologically productive of the Great Lakes also make it the most fragile. It really makes you wonder, what does the future hold for this incredible and vital ecosystem? Alright, that is it for this video, everyone. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video.